sometimes struggle to get up in the morning or wind down for bed at night? I used to find it so difficult. I woke up with no sense of positivity and brightness. I was void of motivation and spirit. This changed completely when I started waking up with a Lumi body clock. These incredible devices mimic the light and colour of a real sunrise and sunset, transforming the experience of waking up and going to sleep completely. Rather than being suddenly woken up with an alarm clock, the Lumi body clock will wake you up gradually with a natural sunrise. The Lumi body clock has been shown to improve the quality of sleep and awakening and to boost mood and productivity in clinical trials. You can personalise your sunrise and sunset from 15 to 90 minutes with their clinically tested unique natural light and more than 20 sleep and wake sounds. We all deserve to sleep well and to wake up feeling fresh. So if you're finding this a challenge and you want to try a new approach, go to lumi.com.
It wasn't rock and roll. In fact, it hadn't even been invented yet. But there was music, and she would sing along with it, and so it was sort of waiting to connect with me. And when rock and roll started to happen in 1953, I was 9 years old. I bought my first record, "Roll With Me, Henry" by Etta James. I think the title might be off a little bit. "Roll With Me, Henry." Anyway, my second record was "Bo Diddley" by Bo Diddley, and they were 78s. 45s hadn't been invented yet. So I loved the music, but my dad hated it. Fats Domino, James Brown, on and on and on. Huey Piano Smith, Gene Krupa, the great Gene Krupa, big band drummer. And he was walking out in an outfield, a baseball outfield. That's a lot of grass out there, and the band's playing, but they never showed the band. And he's walking out in this outfield, and there's like 10 drum sets there. And he's coming in and he's playing on the cymbal stands, and he's not playing, hitting at the actual instrument yet. He's hitting around it, and then boom, they hit the chorus, and he sits down and starts playing with the band, and I just went, now I know what I want to do. I want to play drums, but I want to play rock and roll. And I went out and bought a snare drum with money I had been saving up, and started buying a drum set, one piece at a time. And we started the band when we were 13, and
Wow.
had a dream, and lo and behold, our dream was to have our songs played on the radio. Well, they've been doing it for 54 years, so dream come true.
What age was that when you had that moment of epiphany?
I think it was like 58, 59. 1958, 1959, somewhere in that area.
Wow, what a time to be alive.
The records, I continued to buy records. So the records that I would buy, I would listen to very carefully and listen for what the drummer was doing. And then, of course, I would do my homework at night, put my books on my desk, and they had little brass lamps that looked like a cone on the end. And the neck was a flexible neck. And so I set that up where a cymbal would be. And I had my pencils, and I didn't sharpen the pencils because I didn't want to hurt myself. So I'd listen to the radio, and I'd hear a drummer doing a certain thing. And I would imitate, emulate, steal, whatever you want to call it. And that's how I learned between my record collection and the radio.
So you never really sat down with like a teacher to do like learning sheet music and all that stuff. You learned by immersing yourself into listening very carefully and learning your own style.
That's true. I took like one drum lesson from a guy, and he was so out of touch. And he told me not to play the rock and roll, and he gave me this corny music to play. I said, "I'll take it from here," So that's what I did. And we were an instrumental trio when we started, John, Stu, and I. And we were, like I say, we were 13. And so there was room to add fills because there was no voice being heard. And so I would listen to things that matched musically what we were playing. And then I would try to craft the fill around that modem, and it worked. It served me well in the situation where we had no vocalist. But when we had a vocalist, those spots sort of went away because there was a singer there, and so less is best was our motto. So I played when I played whatever I played, the value of that note had to be greater than the note that preceded it, and that was something that I got from listening to the radio, and they would eventually, especially the R&B station, they would have guests on there, and they would interview them. And I remember the value of the note, and if the value is any less than the note before it, don't play it. It's not meant to be. So I've done that. I've got a question for you. You know who Bobby Whitlock is?
I do know who Bobby
Derek and the
from Derek and the Dominoes, exactly.
He's a terrific singer, and then he plays Hammond B3 organ. So it's nice to have that for a change. Most of the bands I've been in are all guitars, a lot of guitars, but to have the power of the Hammond B3 organ in there, it's really a nice change for me. We recorded this.
When did you record California Gold?
1978.
And it's been in a vault ever since?
It's been in Cosmo's vault. Cosmo's my nickname. That vault is Cosmo's vault. I have a few other things left in there. I had a release called Clifford Wright. That was Steve Wright from Greg Kihn Band. And one of the things that I have a couple of things that I work by, and that is I have to be a writer or a co-writer on the project, and if I co-write, I only co-write with one person. Three's a crowd, and four is ridiculous, and that's what I did on all of this music that's come out of the vault. And some of there are a few where I wrote without a partner. It just something came to mind, and I got it down, and every once in a while that happens. And so, but the thing about collaboration is that other person has something that I don't have, and I have something that other person doesn't have. So you tap on each other's strengths, and it's amazing what comes out sometimes. And that method really for me gets me going. When I get a spark from whoever I'm working with, then I'm in the game, and we will take it as far as we can while we're together. But a lot of times I will take something home with me and either finish it or get it to a point where it has a solid direction, and I want to pass the ball off to the other guy. I'm using sports vernacular now, so but you know what I mean.
This is a wonderful recording, and it's a real service to music that you're putting this out there, and that it's been discovered, because was this like rediscovered, and had you kind of forgotten about it?
Well, I had over the years, but then when I started, I'm in my studio now, and I have some written pads with a bunch of songs that were written on, and I found it looking for I don't remember what I was looking for, but I discovered it, and then I also discovered tapes that I had, and I went, oh wow, I remember this stuff. I wonder if it still works. You know, so I had to bake the tapes. It's a technique that is used, and it's not guaranteed. It's it's kind of a crap roll. And so all the albums, including the one we're talking about, California Gold, they're two-track masters. So in other words, I didn't have the multi-tracks to mix. What I mixed back in the day is what we had to work with. And so there are some nice little electronic gadgets that are out there that I'm not the greatest technical person, but I know what each one is capable of doing and why. So I have Russell DeShiel, a dear old friend of mine, a lead guitarist and audio engineer. He's the executive producer on that record and co-producer on a solo record I did, another solo record called Magic Window.
Yeah, that was back in 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Brought that out. Yeah. Great.
So we were able to, mix from a 2-track what you hear, and if I didn't know that was the case, I would think that that is not how it happened. I would think that it was mixed down from the multi-track and then sent into mastering. But sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes it's experience, and I've always surrounded myself with good people. That's another thing. Dreams and so forth are great, but if you're not passionate about it, and if you're not willing to work it, like I'm working my other dream now. I have my own record company, Cliffsong Records.
When did you start Cliffsong Records?
I just started it about a year ago.
And what are you looking to achieve with Cliffsong Records? Because obviously you've achieved.
Well, I wanted to have full control of anything I put out, and I also have to be the writer on it. So it's a way to get my music out and get some attention. And it's also, you don't have some guy from A&R telling me, oh, we've decided to move your release date to this date. No, we're going to miss the Christmas release. And if we miss that Christmas release, I'm not releasing the record. So I won't have that, and I won't have to audit that record company like the ones that I have Creedence on them. We audit them every year and find that they come up a little bit short every time. So
yeah.
Welcome to the record business.
Yeah, the record business is a real minefield. Are you partly motivated to do this due to frustration at past experiences? Like, for example, was California Gold left in the vault? Because this is a fantastic recording, features as well as you and Bobby, but also it also features Donald Dunn of Stax Records fame. Yeah, it's a fantastic recording. Was it left in the vault because of like A&Rs and record industry complications?
Well, it was the idea of the tape was to send it to a record company, one that we were interested in, or ones that more than just one that we were interested in. You'd send them a tape, and if they like it, then the deal would be they would come to a gig where you were playing, and see if we were able to pull off what they expected from getting the tape. And what happened is Duck got a call from John Belushi, and they made him a blues brother. And Duck said, "I'm sorry, guys, I this is a chance of a lifetime for me. I've always dreamed of making movies." And we just said, "God bless you. You're gonna go. We're rooting for you." He's one of my best. Was one of my best buddies back then, and we all said, "Yeah, God, to take that one. You can't not do it." And and then Bobby's wife didn't like the Bay Area so much, and then the other guitar player said, "Well, I think I see this is going away, so I'm going to go over here." So that's when I said, "In the vault. I don't know what I'll do with this, but I think it's good enough to keep." And so that's what I did. And then I went downstairs as I said, I was looking around and found some things that I wasn't looking for. And so I went into my garage, which is a big 4-car garage, and it's got cement, of course, cement floor and in the kind of conditions that you want to store audio tape in, and that's what I did. That's the real vault, but it was also in a cabinet that was kept the temperature pretty much even all the time, summer and winter. And so then I talked to an audio engineer friend of mine, told him, I've got all these tapes, but I'm afraid to put them on the tape machine because I don't know that they'll hold up. I don't know what'll happen to them. He says, "Give them to me, and there's a process called baking, and I know how to do it, and it'll take about 2 weeks before we'll know if we get pay dirt or not." And I have a lot of, I have probably 6, 7 albums, maybe even 8, different artists. So he took it, and every single one of them came out without a flaw. I think there was one teeny flaw on a long fade out on something that we would have been out already. So no harm, no foul. But what you do then, you have like a week or 2, maybe a little more, to go take that tape and transfer it to digital, and because the digital will work, eventually the tape that's been baked will crumble. So we did that, and all, like I say, all of them were 2-track, quarter inch tape, and I've learned how to mix and do other things with finished products.
Well, I think that your fans and the music community in general are going to be pretty knocked out to hear this record, to hear California Gold, and I think a lot of the things that you probably got planned with Cliffsong Records in terms of setting up a label. How, is that something that's very difficult to do for a man in your position, or was that fairly simple? Presumably a lot more simple than dealing with all the middlemen.
Well, first of all, you need a strong distributor. And there's a man named Bob Frank who has Sony Orchard. So that's obviously from Sony Records. And he has independent guys like myself. It's the best of both worlds. He's not going to act like the record company and tell me when my releases are and what I get to do anything I want, put out anything I want. And he has a very strong sense of the business. And he's a great ally. So it was pretty easy to do once I had product and played it for him, and he really liked it. He said, "Yeah, I'll definitely sign you up. Let's get it going." So I have the distributor, and I have my label, and Russell is involved with that, as well as I say, an executive producer on things, and we've been in the business a long time. He was a spirit in the sky. He was, that wah wah fuzz tone guitar. That's Russell the Shield. So wow. He's been on a one-hit wonder. He has that experience. Yeah. Oh yeah. Gets a lot of airplay, especially in sports. In between half times in football games and things like that, I hear it all the time. I call him up and I say, look, check your mailbox. There might be a check in there for you. So that's my mini team, and we're having fun. But the key to success in the record business is airplay. And that's what I'm trying to drum up. Every pun intended there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you will succeed. But how does the live side of things factor into everything? I mean, obviously, you're probably not going to be going out on the road and playing old tracks from these records that you've dug up from the vault. But how often are you on the road at the moment? Was it in the early 90s that you kind of got back on the road? Have you been on the road ever since?
Yeah, 95, actually. It's Stu Cook and I had a company called Creedence Clearwater Revisited. And we just retired from that 2 years ago. 25 years we had that project. We were hoping to get 2 or 3 years out of it. We didn't know how the public would take it, but they wanted Creedence live, and they wanted it done by the guys that put the grooves in the studios on record. So we got a pretty good chuckle out of there. It's like a second career. But now I'm in my third career, and it keeps me home. I'm really tired of traveling. I have Parkinson's disease, and I don't have the stamina that is necessary to play drums and travel on the road. And but I consider myself lucky in life, and I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 54 years.
Wow.
And I've been on the good side of the ledger. So the Parkinson's, you got to have some trouble in your life, because then you don't appreciate the good. So that's kind of how I treat it. I pretty much ignore it. I have to watch my balance. My hands don't shake unless I'm holding something, like maybe. It's
a very uplifting philosophy that you've got on life, and what an amazing thing to be married to your high school sweetheart for 54 years. So is that taking you through more or less, or completely, like all your time in the music business, that she's been by your side?
Yeah, she's been there. Well, high school, so we've actually been together 60 years, but the first 6 years we were too young to get married. But she's been very supportive, and proud of my accomplishments, and it's what I do, and it's who I am. So hopefully I can, find success as a record company mogul.
I'm sure you will be able to. And I wanted to finish off, Doug, by asking you a bit about, your drumming style. How would you define? Because you were talking then about, earlier in this interview, about how in the early days, when you were just instrumental, how you were playing a lot more fills and stuff. But what I think is so, on the most famous recordings that you've done, it's so great about your style that a lot of drummers don't seem to get right now, is like the way that you played for the song. Were there any drummers who influenced you in that regard?
Yeah, Al Jackson Jr. from Booker T and the MGs is my all-time idol. Unfortunately, he was murdered many years back, but we became pals, and how cool to we took them on the road with us. They had never played the big venues before, and we said, "You guys need to be out." And so they put out an album before their tour, and we took them out and gave them our crew, so they didn't have to do anything but play their instruments and enjoy the traveling in the big leagues. And they were the house band for Stax, and they played on all the Otis Redding records. They weren't just an instrumental band with Green Onions. They were the house band, and Sam and Dave and all those great singers. Those guys were playing, and Al Jackson was just the coolest guy. We spent time, but he never brought sticks out and said, do this and do that. It was all philosophical. And I'll give you an example. He said, "Well, what are your goals?" I said, "Well, I want to be a metronome." He said, "Why would you want to be a metronome?" I said, "Well, John said he wanted me to be like a metronome, so that's kind of what I've been doing." And he says, "A metronome is a machine." He says, "Here's a quarter note, and you're coming into a part in the song that's a chorus. So it's a change from the verse. The verse kind of is there to set up the chorus. So the chorus in the song is the money part of it. That's what you wait for. Everybody knows the chorus to their favorite song, but they may not know the words and the verses." And so he said, "You're coming into or a solo, something that you feel it, and you don't want to fight that. But so you go from the middle of the note to maybe here on the note, and then as you get ready to come back to the verse, back to the thing that is the glue, then you might even come here to footnote a change. There is a big change, verse and chorus." And he said, music. He said, "Now, if you're here, you're rushing. And if you're here, you're dragging. You don't want that. But it's okay to have a little movement." And I did have a little movement after that. I didn't think about having, and I just thought about what was coming next in the song. And that was probably the best advice I ever got from anybody. And his backbeat was spot on. But when he came to those parts in the song, you could it was more of a feeling. You could feel it, and so that was my thing. We kept fills to a minimum. They had to have merit. As I said, they have to have value. This quarter note, if you're going to put it in there and it's different than this one behind it, it's got to have value equal to or greater than, and hopefully greater than. You're doing something that moving. A song starts at the beginning, goes through the middle, and comes to the end. All songs do that, and there are parts of those songs that have certain movements by virtue of the type of music, or there's so many different things. But the song is a living thing; it's alive, and you have to be careful not to be too free with it, You have to have your discipline. But my philosophy is the groove is my break, or my fill. The groove is what the song is all about, and it's about tempo and certain chord changes and other things that make the song what it is, a living thing. And so if I'm in the groove, and I'm pretty good at being in the groove, that's my job. Support.
Yeah.
Support. Hold up the house.
It requires that feel, that human feel that's you, and that's what you bring to the table, and it can't be done by other people, and it certainly can't be done by computers. Because, as you say, sometimes you're playing slightly ahead of the beat, like if it's a chorus, or slightly behind the beat if it's a verse, and that type of stuff. That's why, in my view, the best drummers were from the 60s and from the 70s. Because the feel was just all there, and it was playing for the song. But Doug, I wanted to finish off by asking you, are there some recordings that are particularly close to your heart, like recordings that you've been involved with, that if you had to say, this demonstrates what I can do as a drummer, this is what I would say, like, go and listen to this. What are your favorites from some off the top of your head from your career?
I've got the song, or I've got the record. It's the artist is Doug Somm, Sir Douglas Quintet, probably the most talented guy I ever worked with, and the nuttiest guy I ever worked with. But I produced the album and played drums on it, and I got Stu Cook to play bass with me on it, and it's called Groover's Paradise. And if you get a chance to listen to the Groover's Paradise, that's the opening song. That was a single, and it's really fun. But what it does is it shows off his talents. He can play country music, and you would think it was George Jones. He can play the blues, and you would think he was any number of guys, and you would think he was black as well. With his talented vocal, he rock and roll. I mean, he can play rock and roll as good as any rock and roll player on the planet. And I wanted to be able to show his talent, but getting him to focus on anything, I had to really ride him like a horse. But he knew that what I was doing was just trying to get the best out of him, and he respected me. I mean, I was his favorite drummer, and he had always respected my playing, and how I carried myself, and the way I approached my craft, and so that's a good album. And it shows you how talented a guy is, that you just have to, in his case, sit him down and say, give me the weed. Yeah. I'm taking control of this now. Don't worry, I won't touch one drop of it. But you're not going to get any of this until you've earned your keep for the day. And otherwise, if I didn't do that, he'd go get stoned, and we'd waste 4 hours of studio time. I says, your name's on it, my name's on it, and it's always going to be there. Once it's done, it's done. And I know I don't want anything less than your best, and I know how good you are, but you gotta focus on the task at hand. So that record, I still play. I play CDs when I play just about every day. and I play. I can't just play with my drum set. It's boring, and this way I just played with Bonnie Raitt the day before. I forgot how great she was. Wow, playing that slide guitar, and her vocals were astounding, and as a
wonderful.
Yeah, just wonderful. So, yeah, I hope that answered your question.